The signal arrived on a Tuesday. Dr. Marcus Reynolds was half asleep in the observatory's break room when the computer alerts began to ping with increasing urgency. The radio telescope array at Arecibo's successor facility had detected something unusual, a pattern too regular, too deliberate to be natural cosmic noise. "It's probably another pulsar," he muttered, rubbing his eyes as he navigated to his workstation. It wasn't a pulsar. Within 24 hours, observatories across 6 continents confirmed the signal's authenticity. Within 48, the news had leaked despite desperate government attempts to contain it. Within 72, global markets had plummeted nearly 30%. Religious leaders were making contradictory proclamations, and 3 separate militia groups had stormed Area 51. "We should have had protocols for this," Director Ellen Hargrove said, addressing the hastily assembled International Astronomical Union emergency session. Her face, displayed on screens around the world, showed the strain of 3 sleepless nights. "We've been searching for 60 years, yet somehow we convinced ourselves we have time to prepare if it ever happened." The signal itself was simple yet profound. Prime numbers, followed by what appeared to be mathematical constants, then basic chemical formulas. It originated from a star system just under 12 light-years away, practically next door in cosmic terms. What followed was chaos wrapped in bureaucracy. The United Nations Security Council declared the signal a matter of global security. NATO and rival powers alike scrambled military assets. Religious attendance surged worldwide, split between those seeing divine intervention and those predicting apocalypse. In a small apartment in London, Dr. Amara Johnson watched it all unfold on her television with a mixture of awe and dread. As one of Earth's leading xenolinguists, a field that had been largely theoretical until now, she knew her quiet academic life was about to change forever. Her phone rang. It was a government number. "They're asking me what we should say back," she told her partner Tom, after hanging up. "As if I would know." "What did you tell them?" he asked, eyes wide with wonder and fear. "I told them the truth," she said, staring out at the night sky. "That whatever we say will define humanity for all time, and that we've never been good at first impressions." As teams of scientists, linguists, and diplomats worked feverishly to craft humanity's first official interstellar message, the public reaction exposed fault lines in human society. Some cities held celebrations. Others reported rioting and looting. Gun sales in the United States reached unprecedented levels. Doomsday cults flourished. Meanwhile, the message from the stars continued, growing more complex with each passing day. Images began to appear, mathematical representations that, when properly decoded, showed what appeared to be a vessel. It was coming. In the White House Situation Room, the president turned to his advisors. "Are we ready for this? Be honest." The room fell silent until General Harris cleared his throat. "Mr. President, humanity has never been ready for its most significant moments. We weren't ready for fire, for agriculture, for the atomic age. We adapted. We survived. We will again." Dr. Reynolds, now a reluctant celebrity, wasn't so sure. As he studied the latest transmission, he couldn't shake a profound realization. Humanity was about to face its greatest test, and we were going into it divided, unprepared, and armed to the teeth. What could possibly go wrong? The historians were the first to draw the parallels. "We've been here before," Dr. Eliza Moore argued during a televised panel discussion. "Not with aliens, obviously, but the pattern is clear. When technologically advanced civilizations encounter less advanced ones, the results are rarely beneficial for the latter." The comment sparked global outrage and debate. Were humans the less advanced civilization in this scenario? The question itself was enough to wound collective pride. Across the Pacific, Admiral James Liu reviewed historical naval encounters between imperial powers and isolated island nations. The similarities were unsettling. In almost every case, he reported to the Joint Chiefs, the technological gap led to exploitation, regardless of initial peaceful intentions. Meanwhile, The alien signal continued its broadcast, now including what xenolinguists interpreted as navigational data. The vessel, if that's what it was, would arrive within 18 months. In rural Tanzania, Elder Nuru watched these developments with the wisdom of someone who had seen his country transition from colonialism to independence. When journalists sought his perspective, his answer was simple yet profound. The Europeans came with smiles and gifts before they came with chains, he said. We would be wise to remember this, but not to assume our visitors share human failings. The Vatican appointed a special theological commission to consider the implications for faith. Other religious authorities followed suit. Some embraced the possibility that God or gods had created multiple intelligent species. Others rejected the entire phenomenon as deception or test of faith. Dr. Johnson found herself increasingly frustrated by humanity's response. We're looking at this all wrong, she insisted during a UN briefing. We keep projecting our own history, our own fears and desires onto them. They aren't European explorers or American colonists or science fiction monsters. They are something we've never encountered before. Her words resonated with some but fell on deaf ears with others. Nations began to position themselves for advantage in a post-contact world. Resource-rich countries suddenly found themselves courted by major powers. Military alliances were quietly reinforced. Tom found Dr. Johnson staring at old photographs one evening. Images of indigenous peoples encountering Western explorers for the first time. "What are you looking for?" he asked. "I'm looking at their eyes," she replied. "I'm trying to imagine what it felt like. That moment when their entire understanding of the world collapsed and rebuilt itself in an instant." In Washington, London, Beijing, Moscow, and Delhi, security councils debated worst-case scenarios and contingency plans. The optimists pointed to the peaceful nature of the transmissions. The pessimists noted that hunter-gatherers had often been greeted with beads and trinkets before having their land seized. Professor David Miller, a renowned anthropologist, published an influential paper comparing potential first contact scenarios with historical precedents. Even with the best intentions on both sides, he wrote, the introduction of advanced technology to less developed societies has consistently produced cultural trauma, social disintegration, and dependency relationships. As the predicted arrival date approached, humanity's response solidified along predictable lines. The United World Contact Initiative was formed, but it competed with dozens of national programs. A unified message was drafted, then redrafted as nations objected to wording, emphasis, or perceived slights. Dr. Reynolds, observing this fragmentation, couldn't help but see history repeating itself. "We're acting exactly like our ancestors," he told Dr. Johnson during a rare moment of respite. "Squabbling over who gets to speak for Earth while a completely unknown civilization approaches. Perhaps that's why they're coming," she suggested. "Maybe they've been watching us long enough to know we need an intervention. Or maybe," Reynolds countered darkly, "they'd been watching long enough to know exactly when to strike." As the clock ticked down, humanity looked to its past for guidance, but found only cautionary tales, histories written by the victors, about the vanquished. And still, the stars grew ever closer. The alien vessel entered the solar system with little fanfare, a gleaming object that reflected sunlight as it decelerated past Neptune's orbit. Earth's telescopes captured images that were immediately broadcast worldwide. A sleek construction unlike any human spacecraft, moving with impossible precision. "They're not responding to our transmissions," General Harris reported. The hastily established First Contact Command Center buzzed with activity as military and civilian experts monitored the approach. "Perhaps they communicate differently," Dr. Johnson suggested. "We're assuming they use radio waves as we do." As the vessel approached Mars, it suddenly changed course, a maneuver that would have killed any human crew with its G-forces. It positioned itself in Earth's orbit, maintaining the exact distance of the Moon. And then it split open. 7 smaller craft emerged, descending toward Earth at different trajectories. Panic ensued. Defense systems worldwide went to maximum alert. In 3 separate incidents, Fighter jets were scrambled to intercept, though they had no hope of reaching the visitors' altitude. The 7 craft spread out, hovering over 7 locations: Washington, D.C., Beijing, Moscow, New Delhi, Brasilia, Addis Ababa, and the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Why these places? The president demanded. The first 6 are power centers, Dr. Moore explained. As for the Pacific location, we're not sure. It's equidistant from major landmasses, roughly at Earth's center when viewed from space. The world held its breath as the craft remained stationary for 3 days. No further communications were received. No hostile actions were taken. Just silent observation that tested human patience and triggered widespread anxiety. On the 4th day, something new appeared in the skies worldwide, a projection visible regardless of daylight, showing what appeared to be a humanoid figure. The image spoke, but not in any human language. Instead, a series of mathematical formulas and geometric patterns flowed from its mouth. Dr. Johnson worked frantically with a team of mathematicians and linguists. It's a primer, she realized. They're teaching us their language by establishing shared concepts. For 2 weeks, the projections continued at regular intervals. Teams worldwide collaborated, setting aside geopolitical differences in the face of this unprecedented challenge. Progress was made. Mathematical concepts gave way to physical ones, then to simple objects and actions. They're being remarkably patient, Dr. Reynolds noted. They clearly understand the enormous challenge of cross-species communication. Not everyone was convinced of the visitors' benign intentions. Military installations remained on high alert. Conspiracy theories flourished. Religious interpretations varied wildly. Angels, demons, the rapture, the end of days. During the 3rd week, a breakthrough occurred. The alien projections began to include human words, apparently learned from our broadcasts. The sentences were strange, syntactically awkward, but comprehensible. We come peaceful. We observe long. We wish exchange knowledge. The UN Secretary General was chosen to respond, reading from a carefully crafted script. Humanity welcomes you in peace. We are eager to learn about you and share our knowledge. The response came immediately. Send 3 representatives. Pacific location. Tomorrow sunrise. The debate over who would represent humanity was fierce and brief. In the end, pragmatism won over idealism. Dr. Johnson was selected for her linguistic expertise, Admiral Liu for security considerations, and Dr. Moore for her historical perspective on cultural encounters. As they boarded a naval vessel bound for the coordinates, Dr. Johnson turned to her colleagues. We're making history today. Admiral Liu nodded grimly. Let's just hope we're not repeating it. Above them, the alien craft waited, silent and inscrutable, ready to lift the veil on humanity's cosmic isolation. The meeting took place on a hastily constructed platform in the middle of the Pacific. As dawn broke, casting golden light across gentle waves, a small craft descended from the larger vessel hovering above. Dr. Johnson, Admiral Liu, and Dr. Moore stood side by side, each clutching the communication devices developed over sleepless nights. Nearby, a military escort maintained a respectful distance, present for security but instructed to remain passive unless threatened. The alien craft touched down without a sound. A seam appeared in its seamless surface, widening into an entrance. 3 figures emerged. They were not as alien as many had feared or hoped. Bipedal, with 2 upper limbs and a head-like structure, they moved with an unsettling grace. Their skin, if it was skin, shimmered with a metallic iridescence. Where eyes might be, they had what appeared to be sensory organs that rotated independently. Greetings, Dr. Johnson said, employing both spoken language and the mathematical symbols they had established in previous communications. The center alien responded with similar mixed communication. Greetings, humans. We are untranslatable. From untranslatable. For the next 6 hours, the 2 species engaged in the most remarkable dialogue in human history. The translation was imperfect, frustrating, yet occasionally profound. The aliens explained they had been observing Earth for over a century, learning languages and customs before making contact. Why now? Admiral Liu asked directly. The alien response was troubling. Your technology approaches dangerous threshold. Many species destroy themselves at this stage. We intervene sometimes. Dr. Moore seized on this. You've done this before. Made contact with other species. Yes, many times. Some succeed. Some fail. And what determines success or failure? Dr. Johnson asked. The alien's sensory organs rotated toward her. Ability to overcome biological programming. To see beyond tribal lines. To value knowledge over power. As the conversation progressed, it became clear the aliens were neither conquerors nor saviors. They were more like interstellar anthropologists, studying developing civilizations and occasionally offering guidance at critical junctures. They had gifts, data storage devices containing scientific knowledge, particularly focused on sustainable energy and environmental repair. But they also had warnings about technologies humans were pursuing that had proven catastrophic for other civilizations. This isn't how I expected first contact to go, Admiral Liu admitted privately to his colleagues during a brief recess. They're not here to trade or establish diplomatic relations in any way we understand. They're treating us like we're children, Dr. Moore observed. Maybe to them, we are, Dr. Johnson replied. But at least they're talking to us, not conquering or destroying us. When the meeting reconvened, the aliens made their purpose clearer. They would remain in Earth orbit for 1 year. During that time, they would share knowledge and observe humanity's response. At the end of the year, they would decide whether Earth was ready for further contact or should be left to develop in isolation. You judge us, Admiral Liu asked, unable to hide his indignation. Not judge. Assess risk. Some species not ready. Given advanced knowledge, they destroy themselves or others. As the meeting concluded, the alien spokesperson offered a final observation. Humans interesting. Divided yet connected. Violent yet compassionate. You stand at crossroads. Next steps determine your cosmic future. The three representatives returned to a world hungry for details. Media outlets worldwide broadcast their reports. Governments scrutinized the alien data. Religious leaders sought meaning in the cosmic visitors. Some saw opportunity in the aliens' guidance. Others resented their presumption in deciding humanity's readiness. National rivalries emerged over access to the alien knowledge. The old patterns reasserted themselves with disturbing speed. Dr. Johnson watched it all with growing concern. They're testing us, she told Tom one night. And I'm not sure we're passing. In diplomatic chambers and public forums worldwide, a central question emerged. Was humanity ready to put aside its differences and embrace a unified cosmic future? Or would ancient rivalries and fears doom this unprecedented opportunity? The aliens watched silently from orbit, their judgment unknown. 3 months into the aliens' year-long observation period, the initial unity of purpose had fractured along predictable lines. The scientific community collaborated across borders, eager to decode the knowledge offered by the visitors. But governments grew increasingly secretive about their findings, each seeking advantage in the potential technological revolution. Dr. Johnson had been appointed to lead the International Xenolinguistic Institute, a new organization dedicated to improving communication with the alien visitors. Yet she found herself increasingly sidelined from the actual diplomatic process as military and intelligence agencies took control. They don't understand what's at stake, she told Dr. Reynolds during a rare moment away from monitoring stations. This isn't about national security or economic advantage. It's about our place in the cosmos. Reynolds nodded grimly. Humanity doing what humanity has always done, focusing on short-term gain over long-term survival. The alien vessels remained in their positions, silent observers to humanity's response. Occasional transmissions continued, mostly answers to scientific questions posed by Earth's researchers. but on geopolitical matters, they remained steadfastly neutral. Public reaction had evolved from initial shock to a complex tapestry of responses. Alien tourism boomed around the 7 hovering craft. New religions emerged, proclaiming the visitors as messengers of cosmic truth. Existing faiths incorporated the reality of extraterrestrial life into their theologies with varying degrees of success. In Washington, a heated National Security Council meeting was underway. The Chinese have already developed prototype fusion reactors based on the alien data, the Secretary of Defense reported. We can't afford to fall behind. That's exactly the kind of thinking that could cause the aliens to deem us unworthy, countered the science advisor. They're looking for cooperation, not competition. The president rubbed his temples. They gave us the same information. Why not use it? 6 months in, a more troubling development emerged. Analysis of the alien data revealed subtle differences in what had been shared with each nation. The variations weren't in the scientific principles, but in the suggested applications. It's a test, Dr. Moore realized. They're seeing if we'll share and compare notes or hoard the knowledge. By the 8-month mark, tensions had reached a breaking point. Russia accused the United States of weaponizing alien technology. China suggested a unified approach, but under its leadership. Smaller nations demanded equal access to all shared knowledge. At the UN General Assembly, the Secretary-General made an impassioned plea. This moment will define our species for all time. Will we be remembered as the generation that squandered humanity's introduction to the cosmos, or the one that rose above our ancient quarrels to embrace a greater destiny? The speech was met with applause but little concrete action. In her apartment, Dr. Johnson received an unexpected visitor. A projection of one of the aliens somehow manifested in her living room, despite robust security measures. "Why are you here?" she asked, heart racing. "Time grows short," the alien communicated. "Humanity divides when it should unite." "I know," she admitted. "We're failing your test." The alien's sensory organs rotated. "Not test. Opportunity. Some among your kind understand. Not enough. What can I do?" she asked desperately. "Share truth. All knowledge given to all nations identical. Perceived differences are your own making." After the alien departed, Dr. Johnson worked through the night, comparing data sets from different countries. The alien was right. The information was identical. The interpretations and applications had diverged based on each nation's priorities and fears. With this revelation, she called an emergency press conference, bypassing official channels. Her announcement sent shockwaves through the global community. There is no special knowledge. No nation received unique insights. We've been competing over imagined advantages while missing the real message. The aliens' response was immediate and unprecedented. All 7 craft simultaneously projected the same message worldwide. Time of decision approaches. Humanity must choose path forward. Unity or isolation. Leaders worldwide realized the gravity of the situation. An emergency global summit was convened. For the first time in human history, representatives from every nation gathered with a single purpose: to decide humanity's cosmic future. As delegates arrived, Dr. Johnson addressed them plainly. "We stand at a crossroads. The path we choose now will echo through generations. Are we ready to join a larger community of intelligent life, or will we prove the skeptics right? That humanity is too fractious, too self-destructive to be trusted with greater knowledge." The summit's outcome would determine everything. The aliens watched and waited for humanity's final answer. The Global Unity Summit, as it came to be known, took place in Geneva, neutral ground with historical significance. For 2 weeks, representatives from every recognized nation engaged in the most important diplomatic negotiations in human history. Dr. Johnson found herself elevated to an unexpected position of influence. Her straightforward approach and deep understanding of the alien communications made her an invaluable mediator between competing interests. "What exactly do they want from us?" demanded the Russian delegate during a particularly tense session. "I believe they want evidence that we can overcome our divisions, Dr. Johnson replied. Not perfect harmony. They understand we're diverse with different perspectives. But they need to know we won't use advanced knowledge to destroy ourselves or others. The summit proceeded through phases of acrimony, deadlock, and cautious progress. Historical grievances and contemporary rivalries threatened to derail proceedings repeatedly. Yet something had changed. The presence of the silent observers above lent gravity to every discussion. Meanwhile, Admiral Liu had been conducting his own investigation. Military intelligence from multiple countries had detected unusual energy signatures emanating from the alien mothership. His findings troubled him deeply. They're scanning us, he reported to a closed session of security officials. Not just our communications or military capabilities. Something deeper, geological, atmospheric, biological. Tom found Dr. Johnson staring at the night sky from their hotel balcony, the alien craft visible as a distant gleaming point. You look worried, he said. Something doesn't add up, she admitted. Why invest so much in observing us, teaching us, testing us, only to potentially leave us behind? If we're not ready, why not return later when we might be? There's a piece missing. Her breakthrough came unexpectedly. During a review of the complete communication record with the aliens, a pattern emerged in their responses, subtle inconsistencies when discussing certain topics, particularly their interactions with other species. Dr. Johnson consulted with Dr. Reynolds and Dr. Moore, sharing her suspicions. Together, they approached Admiral Liu with a radical theory. I believe they're not just observing us, Dr. Johnson explained. They're evaluating us as potential allies or threats. Against what? Admiral Liu asked. I don't know, but I think they're running from something. Armed with this theory, they requested a direct meeting with the alien representatives. To everyone's surprise, the request was immediately granted. On the same Pacific platform where first contact had occurred, Dr. Johnson posed her direct question. What are you not telling us about your purpose here? The aliens conferred among themselves before responding. Perceptive. Earlier than expected. Yes, truth incomplete. What followed was a revelation that transformed humanity's understanding of its cosmic position. The aliens weren't simply benevolent guides or neutral observers. They represented a coalition of species facing an existential threat, a force that systematically eliminated technological civilizations that achieved interstellar capabilities. You prepare us not just for membership in cosmic community, Dr. Johnson realized. You prepare us for war. Conflict inevitable, the alien confirmed. Those who come after us allow no alternatives. They harvest worlds, extinguish species. We seek allies with potential. Admiral Liu's military mind quickly grasped the implications. You're creating a buffer zone. Multiple species at our development level, armed with just enough knowledge to be useful, but not enough to threaten you. Partially correct. We seek genuine allies, but must be certain of reliability. The revelation electrified the Global Unity Summit. Humanity wasn't being judged merely on its moral worthiness, but on its strategic value in a cosmic conflict most couldn't begin to comprehend. Dr. Moore saw the historical parallels immediately. Like smaller nations caught between superpowers during the Cold War, our choice isn't simply about cosmic membership, it's about survival. For some, this clarified everything. For others, it raised disturbing new questions. Were humans being manipulated into serving alien interests? Was this threat real or manufactured to unify Earth under the visitors' influence? In a private meeting, world leaders confronted the aliens with these concerns. Doubts understandable, came the response. Cannot prove threat without exposing Earth to detection. Must decide based on incomplete information. As all species must. The President of the United States voiced the question on everyone's mind. What happens if we decline your offer of alliance? We depart. Remove all shared knowledge. You continue alone. When harvesters arrive, you face them without preparation. And if we accept, limited technology sharing continues. Gradual integration with alliance. Population centers hardened against detection. Some humans joined interstellar defense forces. The summit's final days were marked by intense debate and soul-searching. Humanity faced a choice that would define its future: cosmic isolation with independence, or cosmic engagement with obligation. Dr. Johnson addressed the final session. Throughout our history, we've faced moments that defined us as a species. This is the greatest such moment. We're being offered a place in something larger than ourselves, but at the cost of certain autonomy. The question isn't whether we're ready for first contact. We've had that already. The question is whether we're ready for what comes next. As the vote approached, the aliens made one final communication: choose freely. Either path has merit. Know only this: you do not face the stars alone. The final vote was scheduled for noon GMT. As the hour approached, global communication networks reported unprecedented viewership. Streets in major cities stood empty as humanity collectively held its breath, watching proceedings unfold in Geneva. Dr. Johnson sat in the observer section, fingers intertwined tightly with Tom's. Around them, the world's foremost experts in various fields waited with similar tension. They had done all they could. The decision now rested with the political representatives of Earth's nations. The voting mechanism was simple yet profound. A single question presented to all 193 UN member states: does humanity accept alliance with the interstellar coalition? One by one, nations registered their decisions. The early results showed disturbing division. Major powers aligned largely along existing geopolitical lines. Smaller nations wavered, some abstaining entirely. As the voting progressed, Dr. Reynolds leaned toward Dr. Johnson. "This isn't going well," he whispered. "We're demonstrating exactly the division they feared." Indeed, the alien craft had begun subtle movements, shifting positions for what many feared was imminent departure. Global defense systems tracked these movements with growing alarm. Then something unexpected happened. The representative from Kiribati, a small Pacific island nation threatened by rising seas, requested the floor. Breaking diplomatic protocol, he addressed not the assembly but the citizens of Earth directly through the cameras. "My nation has lived in the shadow of great powers," he said, his voice steady despite the unprecedented nature of his speech. "We have watched our islands sink while others debated whether to help. Today, we face a greater tide, a cosmic one. I ask my fellow small nations, what do we gain by remaining divided? What do we lose by standing together?" His words resonated. In rapid succession, smaller nations began changing their votes, creating a cascade effect. The momentum shifted perceptibly toward acceptance. Yet opposition remained. Several major powers resisted, citing sovereignty concerns and insufficient guarantees. The final tally remained agonizingly short of the required two-thirds majority. As the assembly debated extending the voting period, Admiral Liu received an urgent communication. The defense networks of multiple nations had detected something alarming, a subtle but unmistakable signal emanating from beyond the solar system's edge. He strode to the podium, security clearances granting him emergency access. "Distinguished representatives, we have a development. Our combined tracking systems have detected an unknown object approaching from interstellar space. It's not the aliens we've been communicating with. It's something else." The alien representatives confirmed immediately. Detection systems functioning correctly. Harvester scout vessel approaching. Earlier than anticipated. Decision time shortened. Panic threatened to overtake the proceedings. The Secretary General called for emergency order. "We need to vote now. The question has changed. It's no longer about cosmic alliance, but immediate response to a potential threat." A simplified motion was proposed. Temporary acceptance of alien assistance specifically to assess and address the approaching vessel, with a permanent decision to follow within one Earth year. The vote was swift and nearly unanimous. Only 3 nations abstained, none opposed. Within hours, the alien craft activated previously unseen capabilities. A field of energy extended from the vessels, encompassing Earth's orbit. To ground observers, the stars seemed to shift slightly, as though viewed through rippling water. Masking technology, the aliens explained. Temporary concealment. Scout vessel will detect nothing. For 3 tense days, Earth waited, hidden behind alien technology. The scout vessel passed through the outer solar system, its trajectory bringing it close to Jupiter before it changed course and accelerated away. When it was safely gone, the aliens delivered their assessment. Scout only. Preliminary survey. Full harvester fleet follows in approximately 30 Earth years. 30 years. The timeline both relieved immediate fears and set a clear deadline for humanity's cosmic preparation. The aliens' demeanor changed subtly, becoming more open now that the immediate crisis had passed. Your response impressive. Despite divisions, united when necessary. Potential confirmed. In the months that followed, the relationship between humanity and their alien advisors evolved. The Global Unity Accord was ratified, establishing protocols for technology sharing and defense preparation. A commission of scientists, diplomats, and military strategists was formed to coordinate Earth's integration into the interstellar alliance. Dr. Johnson found herself appointed as the chief liaison between humanity and the visitors. The role weighed heavily on her, but she embraced it with characteristic determination. "We still don't know if we're truly ready," she confided to Tom a year after first contact, as they watched a demonstration of new shielding technology that would eventually protect Earth's major population centers. "I don't think anyone is ever truly ready for something this momentous," he replied. "But we're adapting, learning, growing." Admiral Liu, now heading Earth's nascent Cosmic Defense Initiative, put it more bluntly during a planning session. "Ready or not, the universe knows we're here now. We don't have the luxury of isolation anymore." The aliens, for their part, seemed increasingly impressed by humanity's resilience and innovative thinking. "Your species unique," they told Dr. Johnson during a particularly productive exchange. "Most require centuries for adaptations you accomplish in decades." Dr. Moore, documenting these historic times for future generations, noted the profound societal changes already underway. Traditional rivalries hadn't disappeared, but they had been contextualized by the greater existential challenge. Resources previously dedicated to conflicts were gradually redirected toward common defense and space infrastructure. On the 3rd anniversary of first contact, humanity launched its first vessel incorporating alien technology, a monitoring station positioned at the solar system's edge. It was a small step, but symbolically enormous. As Dr. Johnson watched the launch from Mission Control, surrounded by colleagues from nations that had been adversaries just years before, she allowed herself a moment of cautious optimism. "So," Dr. Reynolds asked her as the vessel successfully achieved its designated position, "do you think they were right about us? Are we ready?" She considered the question carefully before responding. "Probably not. Not completely. But then again, whoever is, the important thing is that we're trying. And maybe that's what readiness really means. Not perfect preparation, but willingness to face the unknown together." Above them, the stars no longer seemed quite so distant or quite so alien. Humanity had taken its first tentative steps into a larger universe. Divided as always, frightened at times, but moving forward nonetheless. Ready or not, the cosmic age of humanity had begun.